And I want to start with Chelsea, funny enough. I know you got Spurs, United and Arsenal. But I do want to start with Chelsea because Matt Laws today has come out and he said that Chelsea plan a midfield summer signing to ease Caicedo and Fernandez's workload. But, there's a chance that could be accelerated towards January because they've previously shown an interest in Mainoo and Adam Wharton.
I'm sure they have.
Yeah. So Chelsea, I don't know how you guys feel about Chelsea, and also you guys in the comments as well. But Chelsea, I feel like midfield is an area they keep buying for.
There's 250 million on Caicedo and Fernandez.
And then they keep buying for. And I would be gutted if I saw Mainoo going to Chelsea because they've liked Mainoo. If they were the first club to register interest in Mainoo around this time last year, I want to say.
Yeah.
It was just before the January window when it first came out that. So Chelsea were looking at both Garnacho and Mainoo from Man United. Obviously, they ended up getting Garnacho. But I don't know how you guys feel, or you guys in the comments feel, about Chelsea trying to sign more players, or if they should be looking elsewhere. Because yesterday against Cardiff, it took £90 million worth of substituted wingers to beat a League One team.
Well, that's not the first time we've seen this happen with Chelsea. We've seen it in recent weeks that their first 11 is very good and on their day can beat anyone and look like world beaters. But as soon as you start dipping into the rest of their £billion players, they just can't do it. They're not very good. We're talking about League One opposition here, and Chelsea, who, if we go back a few weeks ago, we were including in a title race. So I don't know why there is such a drop off. I think for Chelsea, unless you have Colwill and Fofana as your first choices, the rest is just really not that good. Like Chalobah is probably a third choice centre back, realistically, second at a push. I know that Tosin obviously isn't good enough either, and I feel like Matisse has made that abundantly clear as well. So I think I think Chelsea's biggest problem is having leaders, really, especially from the back. Like when you go back years and years, obviously, and look at the great Chelsea teams, massive, strong personalities, especially at the back, whether you had Cech, whether you had Ivanovic, whether you had John Terry, Ashley Cole, like you had such an incredible back line, Carvalho, like then you had Drogba's, you had what's his name, Lampard. So they had such an incredible love that guy, that
bloke.
So when you've not had, it's a different Chelsea model now, it's a different Chelsea structure, and obviously they are incredibly young, but well, in most areas they're still very young. But Reece James is kind of the only one that's really the leader, I feel like, in that Chelsea side. So as soon as you kind of drop down to like the next batch of players, they're not at the same level. And I think that you've got to start from the back. And I think that they call it the A and the B sided centre halves. They need an A sided centre half massively.
Yeah, I do. So just to go through their starting 11 last night, so I'm just taking a look at it now. And so as one of the comments says, Jamie Easton said, Cardiff played Chelsea off the park. I didn't watch the game.
I watched bits of it last night.
I haven't watched the game, but I kind of kept up with it through a mate of mine who's a Chelsea fan who just kept raging in the group chat we have. But their starting 11 was Jorgensen in goal, and then you got Hato, Badiashile, Tosin and Achimpong at the back, which are 4 players that they signed to be, Premier League players. Like Badiashile, believes, didn't he come from Monaco a few years ago and stuff. Like these guys have experience. And then Caicedo and Santos in the pivot with Gittins, Buonanotte, who to this day I don't understand why they signed him.
It's such a bizarre, random signing.
George on the right, and then Guiu up top.
Yeah.
I feel like there are areas I understand why Chelsea want a midfield to maybe rest Caicedo and thing like that. They got Santos, who's been good, and they've got who did Elijah mention? No, someone mentioned Chelsea King 879 mentions Dario as well. But yeah, I do agree that I feel like maybe midfield get an extra option in, but I actually think they should go for like experience up top more than anything, because they've got João Pedro, who's not a striker with the best will in the world, but he's playing up front. Delap, who's getting injured left, right and centre at the moment, and also he's like 22, 23, he's not been fantastic. Then you got Gittins, who we all know is like not as massively experienced in English football. You got Tyreek George, who's looked good at points, but mainly in the Carabao Cup, which makes Garnacho potentially their most experienced and reliable forward player. And Garnacho is 21.
Yeah, which is crazy work.
Yeah.
Crazy work. Yeah, I mean, look, I think that there needs to be a sprinkle of all of that in every area of that Chelsea team. Like I just mentioned about the centre backs, I think that's key. But I think Mainoo, does that add the experience?
Oh, Neto as well. Sorry, thank you.
I don't necessarily know if that adds like the experience that they want or they need. I mean, every team would love to have Mainoo. I'd love to have him at Tottenham, obviously. And like if they can get him, then fair. But that's more just to obviously rotate and rest. That's not going to necessarily change the trajectory. Their trajectory. Thank you, of Chelsea. But I think striker-wise, they need that. But then obviously Cole Palmer's back. Are they going to play with an out-and-out striker? Like, they probably would have been all right to keep Nicholas Jackson, you know.
In retrospect, yeah. Well,
So funny.
Wasn't Matisse very against getting rid of Jackson to start
Yeah,
with, right?
I think he was, yeah. I think so.
Yeah, from what I remember.
It's been a long 6 months.
It's been a weird 6 months.
Telling me. Yeah.
Do you think maybe, Ben, that kind of these issues we're talking about, maybe Chelsea don't need someone such up front, like an experienced person up front if Cole Palmer's coming back? But at the same time, is a lot of Chelsea's hopes, maybe the second half of the season, relying on Cole Palmer very quickly getting back to his best?
I think you're always going to rely on your best players to deliver you the results, really. And João Pedro, when Cole Palmer, or at least in the Club World Cup that I watched bits of, when Cole Palmer was behind him, he looked, 2 times the player that he's looked for most of the Premier League season. When I've watched him, I've had him in my fantasy for half the year, and it's about 1 in every 4 game weeks or 5 game weeks that he's seemingly delivered. So
allergic to having
I would say centre back. I mean, when you were saying about centre back, I think they've not had a commanding presence there since Rudiger left, really. Like, he was the one that you look at and he's the leader in that back line, and they don't really have a leader in that back line.
Yeah, they really don't, because it's tossing, and I know that I think every Chelsea fan on the planet at the moment is a massive fan of him.
The favourite partnership would always be Fofana and Chalobah. Fofana and Colwill. But again, injury has not allowed that to happen. It's not a partnership that can really develop because there's been so many injuries.
They always have so many injuries as well, don't they, Chelsea?
Yeah.
It feels like at any given moment.
At centre-back, they have done.
At centre-back, and then also I think up front as well. Like the midfield, that might be why they're targeting midfield, because it's one area that's not been hit by injury too much yet. But maybe it's just because they know it's coming at some point. But I do feel like with Chelsea in the last few seasons, there's always so many injuries. Do they then bring in so many players and then they get injured, and then you kind of people like spawn in who they signed 2 years ago.
You can't help that, because every team gets injuries and then you have to go into your squad depth. But we're talking about a team last year that essentially the team they'll put out against Cardiff or someone like in lower opposition is the team that they won the Conference League with. But that isn't good enough to really be used in the Premier League.
Yeah, I hear it. Christopher does say Matisse said he wouldn't mind getting rid of Jackson if Chelsea bring in another option, and in the end recalling you was the option, which just wasn't good enough.
And Buonanotte.
Yeah, and Buonanotte.
Yeah.
Wasn't it like they signed Buonanotte and then he went, I can't wait to play in the Champions League, and then they decided not to include him in the Champions League squad. Then there was an injury and then he got included.
It's bizarre.
It's really, really bizarre. Yeah. Like I know Chelsea's like, this is why I find with Chelsea, admittedly, I find it hard to kind of think about a Christmas wish list for them. Because the way, but then
they're not going to do that in Christmas,
because the way they operate makes it like I'm never quite sure if a signing is meant to be a first team signing or someone to flip in a few years.
They tend to not really sign ready-made players as such anymore. Like even Cole Palmer wasn't a ready-made player. That was a player that we didn't know what he was going to look like at the time. We were like 50 million, 50
and he just looked kind of decent for City.
Million. Yeah, he looked decent and wasn't getting in there, but there was still a punt that you were taking.
Yeah, 45
like they're doing
quid,
so much of their business kind of in South America and places like that. Like look at Esteval, for example, and they've got, I can't remember who they signed a couple of weeks ago that they've just signed, but like a lot of their business is being done on young talent that's been scouted and will come good, because it obviously has a sell-on value at some point. But I think in order for Chelsea to actually be taken seriously in terms of being able to create a title charge, you're going to have a little bit of a sprinkle in there with some actual ready-made talent.
Yeah.
In terms of Jan, I don't know whether or not they look at the centre-back situation. Well, it depends. Imagine if they try and get Mark Gahey back. They could. Wouldn't be out of the realms of something Chelsea
I'm
would
actually
do.
happy you brought up Mark Gahey, because I reckon there are 2 players in the Premier League that can pretty much sum up every single person's wish, like every big club's wish list at the moment, which is Gahey and Semenyo.
Yeah.
Those 2 players are on specifically those 2, at least for Premier League, I think are on everybody's wish. I've never seen a player more unanimously linked to the entire top 6 than Semenyo.
Yeah, it's mad.
The way that this £65 million release clause, or 60 plus £5 million release clause, is like, it's just teetering on the edge of good value that every single club has gone, oh,
yeah,
let me listen to that one again. Because even like United a few weeks ago was saying that United weren't massively interested in him, and then now it's coming out.
You don't really need him.
We don't really need him.